Hello, today is Wednesday, July 16th, and welcome to episode 476 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by two NSI senior fellows, Morgan Vigna and Matt Hayden. Thanks, team. Okay, today we're talking about Sudan, where war has become just like a catastrophic and one of the world's most destabilizing conflicts. We've talked about it a few times here on the show, but since April 2023, Sudan has been gripped in a civil war that's being waged between the Sudanese armed forces, the SAF, and the paramilitary rapid support forces, the RSF. We've seen over 150,000 people killed, 14 million people displaced, and really the entire region is also on the brink of famine. So things look pretty bleak out there. This week, the conflict was back in the headlines, a story of 300 civilians, including pregnant women and children, being killed, reportedly by the RSF. So there's a lot going on there. Of course, the conflict is greater than just itself. It's, the SAF is backed by Egypt and Iran and remnants of the Wagner group. The RSF is receiving support from the UAE and from a few other countries. There's, it's destabilizing the region. It may disrupt, international commerce. There's obviously huge mass refugee flows across the continent. Also in this story, we have, of course, the Trump administration. President Trump has been working in agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there was just a story this week that a former White House advisor, I got to be careful how I describe him, came out with an op-ed saying that President Trump is actually perfectly placed to bring an end to this conflict in Sudan. He's got close ties to leaders in the Gulf. He loves making a deal, so he should really step in and try to bring about peace in Sudan. Okay, so Matt, I'm going to turn first to you to kind of give us a lay of the land. Why does this matter to American national security? What are we doing engaged in the region? And what do the prospects look like for the future of Sudan?
So Sudan's always been on the Pentagon and the national security chessboard, but it's largely been because we've had to respond in years past, both humanitarian as well as secure transport across the region. And so it's not an area that is ignored, but it's not an area that's thoroughly maintained. So it's not one that we have a strategic military footprint. There's naval concerns, there's access concerns, there's overflight concerns, but really largely the United States has an interest in just stability. And so making sure that we have the ability to get humanitarian efforts as designated into the region safely and securely, as well as doing a consolidation in our part to support whomsoever may bring stability to that region, knowing that it largely won't be the United States. The United States, at least by recent policy, hasn't decided to be the feet on the ground that maintain a secure posture for that region. They're hoping that others will do it and they can be supportive of that. And so that's what you're going to see out of the current strategy and posture. That doesn't mean that a secure and safer and quieter Sudan isn't an amazing thing for America. It just means that they're not signing up to be the first person to knock on that door.
So Morgan, Matt said the U.S. is taking a step back. We can talk a little, aid and humanitarian is kind of a hot topic in the news when it comes to recent politics. Matt pointed out we're hoping others kind of get feet on the ground. Who are these others that we might hope step up when we kind of take a step back? Kind of what is the administration doing here? What do you think their play is? What do Republicans, where aid has been kind of a dicey topic, are we cutting off aid to Sudan? Like, are how much more trouble are they going to get?
So, Matt, you are so diplomatic and professional in your response.
Morgan's like, that's not what I'm going to do.
In a different direction. Look, I was up like way past my bedtime last night with the whole NDAA markup. God bless the committee and the staff for being able to carry that through, because that is quite the Super Bowl. Matt said that the United States took a step back. I would say we've just faded into obscurity when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa. But also specifically when it comes to this conflict in Sudan. Look, you've got the RSF, Rapid Support Forces, you've got the Sudanese Armed Forces just slugging it out. Dagalo and Burhan aren't trying to kill each other, but yet they're damn working really hard to like kill the Sudanese people. You've got half the Sudanese population that's food insecure. You've got 11 million IDPs. You've got cholera outbreak, and then you've got famine in Darfur. I mean, the humanitarian situation ain't good, right? It's pretty terrible, as a matter of fact. And USAID provided about 44% of all humanitarian assistance to Sudan. And so now, with the gutting of USAID, you now have 9 USAID employees, staffers in the region. And so it's really the the Sudanese people that are really taking the brunt of this. And then yesterday, of course, we saw the Senate vote on the 2025 rescissions package, and this is, of course, the Trump administration's attempt to claw back about $9.4 billion. A lot of that is coming from USAID, and the consolidation there and the downsizing of the agency by 83%. In addition to that, you've got, public broadcasting, some of which I'm not exactly very, very sad that that's being defunded, but that's included. And then, of course, you've got, there was the huge question of PEPFAR. Luckily, PEPFAR looks like it's going to, remain intact. And so the administration will get to claw back about $9 billion, which is considerable. But with that said, though, I mean, I wonder what the real impacts here are for the humanitarian and the humanitarian consequences for the people in the region. Yes, a lot of the development programs were garbage. I think a lot of folks in USAID can acknowledge that. The U.S., however, humanitarian assistance in particular, food aid, have really been a lifeline to the region. And so my main concern is ensuring that that continues to the extent possible. When it comes to, the security situation, I mean, I think Matt's spot on, right? Sudan has been a very important, I dare say, partner or acquaintance in the region. Look, our IC has had a very robust engagement with the Sudanese for quite a while. Unfortunately, we've also seen Wagner move in to the country. Chinese presence is, omnipresent. They're always there. The United States has largely ceded and abdicated leadership in the region to China, and particularly in the security relationships to the Russians. And this is a problem, right? Africa has long been, the redheaded stepchild of all of the continents. I mean, certainly Africa Command. I mean, we're talking about potentially consolidating AFRICOM into EUCOM. Congress has voiced its concern about that, and that was included in the National Defense Authorization Chairman's Mark. And so I think we are seeing folks raise their hands saying, it's probably not a good idea. Let's think twice about that. At the same time, though, I haven't really seen this administration, take any meaningful steps to ensure that the U.S. presence, whether it's development, humanitarian assistance, or security, really make a huge difference. I think they could start, honestly, by building up Africa Command, restoring its budget, particularly ISR in West Africa. In addition to that, actually bringing people, nominating and confirming an assistant secretary for the Africa Bureau, and really building up the presence in the NSC. So I've gone on way too long, and I welcome Matt's comments on this, actually.
The challenge is that there's a long trail of political careers that had promise of solving this problem, and they are now hanging their head. There isn't a victory lap for the region that has got a blueprint that's, if only we did this. And so it is a challenge to execute with high confidence in that region, just because the baseline local population is challenged to outsiders telling them what to do, as well as working with their partners in the region who candidly are part of that same conflict in a lot of ways. And so while there does need to be a strong presence because of the potential counterterrorism, as well as the region's balance to when they choose to become a larger part of the modernized environment, we don't want them all buying Chinese goods or having their infrastructure completely built by the Chinese. They're not there yet. And so the good news is there's still an opportunity space to seed in there, but we have to have a strategy that isn't a flip of a coin from the perception of those in charge. And so that's where the real challenge is that no one can come forward confidently with a better than a 50-50 shot on their strategy to get those above them to make candid investments into it. And so there is a real, not just a political football, a strategy football that just really makes it hard to come across and be just definitive on what has to be done in that region.
Yeah, and Jess, you mentioned Cameron Hudson's article on foreign policy. I love the approach that people are taking, and it's not just Cameron, but it's, whether it's Ute or it's whoever. It's just like, you are so great at negotiating, Mr. President. You can do it. This is like, just add it to your.
So Matt, we haven't tried flattery as a strategy, so we might actually get something there.
It's not. Your Africa policy is garbage and people in Sudan are dying. No, you can do it. So I definitely think it's a very...
We'll see what the Trump administration's decisions are, because they'll be in the headlines if they do anything, because President Trump may take this on personally on his list, and we'll see.
So
we'll see. Okay, thanks. That's a wrap. Thanks so much to Taylor Lane, Natalie Varma, Claude Jennings, and the entire NSI team for their help in producing today's episode and bringing out Morgan's spice on the topic and Matt's diplomacy. Join us on Friday, July 11th for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check us out there. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.